All right, good afternoon. My name's John Wallace. I'm an extension weed specialist at Penn State, and we're here today at Penn State's agronomy farm, located in the center part of the state. And I'm standing in a long-term cropping systems experiment. In the soybean phase of this cropping systems experiment, we're comparing delayed termination of cereal rye prior to planting soybeans. And so this is sometimes referred to as planting green, which just means we're delaying termination of the cover crop to at or after planting of the cash crop. And so our target soybean planting date in central Pennsylvania is about May 15th. So towards the end of April, 2 to 3 weeks prior to our targeted planting date, we'll terminate the cereal rye cover crop in this treatment. And then in the other treatment, we allow that cover crop to continue to grow until we plant. And so growers are interested in planting green here in Pennsylvania because there's a number of potential benefits. Some short-term benefits are increased weed suppression potential. So as we get to higher levels of cover crop biomass and surface mulch, we're potentially going to see greater levels of weed suppression. There's some long-term benefits. As we're growing more biomass, we should be increasing soil health over the long term. And then growers also think about managing cereal rye in springs to achieve really good planting conditions. So they'll allow that cover crop to grow in wet springs, or they may terminate that cover crop in dry springs. So from a weed management standpoint, what we were interested in understanding was whether delaying termination and planting green allowed us to reduce herbicide inputs. And so the way we approached that was in the planting green treatment, we terminated the cover crop, but we didn't use residual herbicides. And then we scouted fields early in the season to determine when we needed to apply a post-emergence application and what type of inputs we needed depending on what weed species were there. In the kind of the standard cover crop termination treatment here, where we're killing the cover crop 14 to 21 days prior to planting, we're using a standard 2-pass herbicide program where we're using a residual at planting with a planned post-emergence pass later in the season. And so we've been conducting this experiment for 5 years now, and we've summarized a 3-year data set. And what that data showed was a couple things. One was that in 1 of 3 years, we saw a yield drag. A small yield drag in the planting green treatment. That year also coincided with it being particularly dry, and so we think soil moisture is an important factor when it comes to planting green and optimizing yields. We also were able to reduce herbicide inputs by over 50% over the 3-year period. We saw similar levels of early season weed recruitment or weed suppression across the treatments, because really in only 1 of 3 years did we dramatically increase the biomass production in the planting green treatment. The other lesson that we learned was that you have to make sure you have the right effective sites of action in your herbicide program. So in 2 out of 3 years, we saw higher mare's tail, glyphosate-resistant mare's tail, or horseweed pressure in the planting green treatment. And we attribute that to not having an effective burn down product that we applied when we terminated the cover crop, as well as excluding residuals from the herbicide program. And so we were needed to rely on post-emergence products to try to control those mare's tail populations.